The autumn rain drummed against the windows of Kensington Palace as Catherine carefully closed the heavy oak door behind her. The hallways were unusually quiet for a Tuesday afternoon, with most of the staff attending to their duties in distant wings of the grand residence. She clutched a sealed envelope in her trembling hands, its contents weighing heavier than the finest crown jewels. Earlier that morning, she had received an unexpected phone call from Princess Beatrice. The conversation started innocently enough, with pleasantries about family gatherings and upcoming charity events. However, as the minutes passed, Beatrice's voice grew more serious, more urgent. She spoke of documents that had surfaced, old agreements that had been hidden away for decades, and decisions made long before any of them were born. William found his wife standing in their private study, staring out at the manicured gardens below. The envelope lay open on the mahogany desk, its contents scattered across the leather surface. Historical papers, family trees with annotations in various handwritings, and what appeared to be legal documents dating back to the early 1900s created a puzzle that neither of them had expected to encounter. The discovery had begun innocently enough when Beatrice and Eugenie were helping their grandmother sort through some of her personal belongings. Hidden behind a false panel in an antique writing desk, they found a collection of papers that their family had assumed were lost forever. These documents told a story that challenged everything they thought they knew about the line of succession and the intricate rules that governed their family's destiny. As Catherine read through the papers again, she noticed William's reflection in the window. His usually composed demeanor showed cracks of concern and confusion. They had always understood their roles within the royal structure, had accepted the responsibilities and privileges that came with their positions. Now, faced with evidence that suggested alternative interpretations of ancient protocols, they found themselves questioning the very foundation of their understanding. The documents suggested that certain decisions made during the reign of King George V had created provisions that were never fully implemented or publicly acknowledged. These provisions dealt with circumstances that seemed almost prophetic, given the current state of the family. The papers indicated that in specific situations, the traditional line of succession could be altered through a process that had been established but never used. Beatrice had explained during their morning conversation that she and Eugenie had spent weeks researching the authenticity of these documents. They had consulted with private historians and legal experts, all sworn to secrecy. The consensus was troubling yet fascinating. The papers appeared to be genuine, complete with official seals and signatures that matched known examples from the period. What made the situation even more complex was the timing of the discovery. Recent events within the royal family had created tensions and public scrutiny that no one had anticipated. The media constantly speculated about relationships, responsibilities, and the future direction of the monarchy. In this climate, the existence of these documents could either provide solutions or create unprecedented chaos. Catherine picked up one particular document, its aged parchment crackling softly in her hands. The language was formal and archaic, but the implications were clear. It outlined specific circumstances under which the normal rules of precedence could be suspended, allowing for a more collaborative approach to royal duties and decision-making. The document seemed to anticipate situations where unity and collective wisdom would be more valuable than strict adherence to traditional hierarchy. William joined her at the desk, his trained eye scanning the historical evidence. His education had included extensive study of constitutional law and royal protocols, but nothing had prepared him for this particular revelation. The document suggested that their ancestors had been far more forward-thinking than anyone had realized, creating safeguards and alternatives that could address challenges they couldn't even imagine. As the afternoon light began to fade, Catherine and William realized they were standing at a crossroads. The information Beatrice and Eugenie had uncovered could remain a family secret, filed away and forgotten like so many other historical curiosities. Alternatively, it could become the foundation for a new approach to their collective responsibilities, one that honored tradition while embracing innovation and collaboration. The weight of the decision pressed down on them like the ancient stones of the palace itself. They understood that whatever choice they made would affect not just their own lives, but the lives of their children and the future of the institution they had sworn to serve. The documents offered possibilities they had never considered, but they also raised questions about loyalty, tradition, and the very nature of their calling. Outside, the rain continued to fall, creating rivulets on the windows that distorted their view of the world beyond. Inside, two people who had always understood their place in the grand scheme of things found themselves contemplating a future that was suddenly filled with unexpected options and unprecedented challenges. The envelope that had arrived that morning had done more than deliver information. It had opened a door to possibilities that would require courage, wisdom, and perhaps most importantly, absolute trust in family bonds that had already been tested by years of public scrutiny and private struggles. The following week brought an unusual gathering at Royal Lodge, Windsor. Princess Eugenie had suggested the location for its privacy and the warm memories it held for all of them. The morning mist hung low over the grounds as four figures made their way through the garden paths, their conversation carried away by the gentle breeze that rustled through the ancient oak trees. Beatrice carried a leather portfolio containing copies of all the documents they had discovered. She had spent countless hours organizing the papers chronologically and cross-referencing them with known historical events. Her attention to detail had always been one of her strongest qualities, and now it served a purpose none of them could have anticipated. Each document had been photographed and studied, with notes written in the margins that helped explain the context and significance of the revelations. Catherine walked beside her, still processing the implications of what they had learned. The past week had been filled with sleepless nights and careful research. She had reached out to trusted historians and constitutional experts, always maintaining the strict confidentiality that the situation demanded. Every conversation had confirmed what they already suspected. The documents were not only authentic, but represented a level of foresight and planning that challenged conventional understanding of royal protocol. William and Eugenie followed a few steps behind. Their conversation focused on the practical aspects of their discovery. Eugenie had always possessed a sharp legal mind, having studied art history and worked in the auction world where authenticity and provenance were paramount concerns. Her analysis of the documents had revealed layers of meaning that might have been missed by less trained eyes. She pointed out subtle details in the language and formatting that supported the paper's legitimacy. The four of them settled into comfortable chairs in the conservatory, surrounded by flowering plants that created a natural barrier from the outside world. The glass walls provided a sense of openness while ensuring their privacy. Beatrice opened the portfolio and spread the documents across the polished wooden table, creating a visual timeline that stretched back over a century. The conversation that followed was unlike any they had ever experienced. They found themselves discussing not just the historical significance of their discovery, but the personal impact it could have on each of their lives. The documents suggested that the traditional roles and responsibilities they had always accepted were not as fixed as they had believed. There were precedents for collaboration, for sharing responsibilities in ways that honored both tradition and innovation. Catherine pointed to a particular passage that had caught her attention during her research. The language described a concept that could best be translated as collective stewardship, where multiple family members would work together to fulfill royal duties. This approach recognized that different individuals brought different strengths and perspectives to their shared mission. Rather than operating within rigid hierarchies, this model encouraged flexibility and mutual support. Eugenie had discovered similar concepts in other documents, suggesting that this was not an isolated idea, but part of a broader philosophy that had influenced royal planning for generations. The papers indicated that previous monarchs had understood that challenges would arise that could not be addressed through traditional structures alone. They had created alternatives that could be activated when circumstances demanded new approaches. As they studied the documents together, patterns began to emerge that none of them had noticed when working individually. Cross-references between different papers created a comprehensive picture of how these alternative protocols were intended to function. The system was elegant in its simplicity, while being sophisticated enough to address complex political and social challenges. William shared his observations about how these historical precedents might apply to contemporary situations. The royal family faced challenges that their ancestors could never have imagined, from social media scrutiny to global economic pressures. Yet the principles outlined in the century-old documents seemed remarkably relevant to modern circumstances. The emphasis on collaboration, mutual support, and shared responsibility resonated with contemporary leadership theories and social expectations. Beatrice had prepared a detailed analysis of how implementing these protocols might affect their individual roles and responsibilities. Rather than diminishing anyone's position, the approach seemed designed to strengthen the overall effectiveness of the family's service to the public. Each person's unique skills and interests could be utilized more fully, creating a more dynamic and responsive approach to their collective mission. The afternoon stretched on as they explored every aspect of their discovery. They discussed the potential reactions from other family members, the constitutional implications, and the possible public response. Each consideration raised new questions and revealed additional complexities that would need to be addressed carefully and thoughtfully. As the sun began to set, casting long shadows across the conservatory, they realized they had reached a consensus without formally acknowledging it. The documents represented more than historical curiosities or alternative interpretations of royal protocol. They offered a roadmap for a new approach to their shared responsibilities, one that could honor tradition while embracing innovation and change. Catherine carefully gathered the papers, handling each one with the reverence it deserved. These documents had survived decades of neglect and secrecy, waiting for the right moment and the right people to discover their significance. Now they faced the challenge of determining how to honor the wisdom of their ancestors while addressing the unique challenges of their own era. The drive back to their respective homes was filled with contemplative silence. Each of them understood that they had crossed a threshold during their afternoon together. They were no longer simply custodians of tradition, but active participants in shaping the future direction of their family's service to the nation. The documents had given them permission to think beyond conventional boundaries and consider possibilities that had always existed but had never been explored. That evening, as Catherine tucked the portfolio away in a secure location, she felt a sense of anticipation she had not experienced in years. The path forward was still unclear, and many challenges lay ahead. However, for the first time in a long while, she felt truly hopeful about the future and their ability to create positive change while honoring the best traditions of the past. The secure meeting room beneath Buckingham Palace had not been used for its intended purpose in over a decade. Hidden away from the public areas and staff quarters, this private space had been designed for sensitive conversations that required absolute discretion. The four conspirators, as Eugenie had jokingly called them, had chosen this location for their most crucial discussion yet. 3 weeks had passed since their gathering at Royal Lodge, and each day had brought new discoveries and deeper understanding of the documents' implications. Beatrice had spent those weeks consulting with constitutional scholars who specialized in obscure royal protocols. Working through intermediaries and maintaining strict confidentiality, she had gradually built a case for the legitimacy and relevance of their findings. The scholars had been intrigued by the sophistication of the documents and the foresight they demonstrated. Several had commented that the protocols seemed almost prophetic in their anticipation of modern challenges to traditional monarchical structures. Catherine had focused her efforts on understanding how these historical precedents might be implemented in contemporary circumstances. She had studied similar collaborative approaches in other constitutional monarchies and had been surprised to discover that several European royal families had quietly adopted modified versions of collective decision-making. These examples provided valuable insights into how traditional roles could be enhanced rather than diminished through cooperative approaches. William had taken on the delicate task of gauging reactions from other family members without revealing the full scope of their discovery. Through carefully crafted conversations, he had explored attitudes toward change and collaboration within the royal framework. The responses had been more positive than any of them had expected, suggesting that they were not alone in recognizing the need for evolution in their approach to royal duties. Eugenie had conducted the most sensitive research of all, investigating the legal and constitutional requirements for implementing the protocols described in the documents. Working with trusted legal advisors, she had mapped out the steps that would be necessary to activate these long-dormant provisions. The process was complex but entirely feasible, requiring only the consent of key family members and proper documentation of the historical precedents. As they settled into the comfortable chairs arranged around the polished conference table, the weight of their decision hung heavy in the air. The documents lay spread before them once again, but now they were accompanied by weeks of additional research, legal opinions, and strategic planning. What had begun as a historical curiosity had evolved into a comprehensive proposal for transforming their approach to royal service. Catherine began the discussion by summarizing the legal framework they had uncovered. The protocols were not merely suggestions or philosophical concepts, but actual provisions that had been formally established and could be legally activated. The documentation process would require careful coordination and absolute discretion, but there were no insurmountable obstacles to implementation. The biggest challenge would be managing the public and media response once the changes became apparent. Beatrice presented her analysis of historical precedents, showing how similar collaborative approaches had been successfully implemented during various crisis periods in royal history. These examples demonstrated that flexibility and adaptation were not betrayals of tradition, but essential elements of institutional survival and relevance. The monarchy had always evolved to meet changing circumstances, and their proposal represented a continuation of that adaptive tradition rather than a radical departure from it. William shared his insights into family dynamics and the potential for building broader support for their initiative. His conversations had revealed that many family members were frustrated with rigid traditional structures that limited their ability to contribute meaningfully to royal service. There was significant enthusiasm for approaches that would allow individuals to utilize their unique skills and interests more effectively while maintaining the dignity and effectiveness of the institution. Eugenie outlined the practical steps required to move forward, emphasizing the importance of careful timing and strategic communication. The implementation would need to be gradual and carefully managed to avoid creating unnecessary controversy or confusion. Each phase of the process would build on previous successes while laying the groundwork for additional changes and improvements. The discussion that followed was intense and thorough, covering every conceivable challenge and opportunity their proposal might create. They examined potential reactions from government officials, constitutional experts, media representatives, and the general public. Each scenario was analyzed and contingency plans were developed to address possible complications or misunderstandings. As the afternoon progressed, their conversation evolved from analysis to planning. They began to envision specific ways the collaborative protocols could enhance their service to the nation while strengthening family bonds and individual fulfillment. The documents had provided the foundation, but their shared vision would determine how effectively the historical precedents could be adapted to contemporary circumstances. Catherine found herself thinking about the long-term implications of their decision. The changes they were contemplating would affect not only their own lives, but the experiences of future generations of royals. They had the opportunity to create a more flexible and responsive approach to royal service that could better serve the nation while providing greater personal satisfaction for those called to serve. The question of timing became central to their planning discussions. They needed to identify the optimal moment for implementation, considering various factors including public mood, political climate, and family circumstances. The decision would require careful coordination with other family members and possibly with government officials, depending on the scope of the changes they ultimately decided to implement. Beatrice raised an important point about the irreversible nature of their decision. Once they activated the protocols and began implementing the collaborative approach, there would be no returning to the previous system without significant disruption and explanation. This reality added weight to their deliberations but also reinforced their commitment to thorough preparation and careful execution. As the meeting drew to a close, they established a timeline for final preparations and implementation. The next few weeks would be crucial for securing necessary support and completing the documentation required to activate the historical protocols. Each of them would have specific responsibilities during this critical period, requiring unprecedented levels of coordination and discretion. The secure room that had hidden their planning session would soon become unnecessary as their private deliberations transformed into public action. The documents that had started their journey would become the foundation for a new chapter in royal service. one that honored the wisdom of the past while embracing the possibilities of the future. The four of them had discovered not only forgotten history, but also the courage to create new traditions that could serve their family and nation for generations to come. The library at Clarence House had become an unexpected war room over the past month. Ancient leather-bound volumes shared shelf space with modern legal texts and constitutional analyses, creating a unique blend of historical scholarship and contemporary strategy. The four allies had transformed the peaceful reading room into their headquarters, where every detail of their revolutionary plan was meticulously researched and refined. Catherine had arrived early that morning, finding comfort in the quiet atmosphere before the others joined her. She had spent the previous evening reviewing correspondence from constitutional experts across Europe, who had provided insights into similar collaborative arrangements in other monarchies. Their responses had been overwhelmingly positive, with several scholars noting that such approaches often strengthened rather than weakened royal institutions by making them more relevant and responsive to modern society. The sound of approaching footsteps announced William's arrival, followed closely by Beatrice and Eugenie. Each carried portfolios containing the latest developments in their respective areas of research. The past weeks had seen remarkable progress in understanding not only the historical precedents, but also the practical requirements for implementation. What had once seemed like an impossible dream was rapidly becoming an achievable reality. Beatrice had made a breakthrough in her research the previous week when she discovered additional documents in her grandmother's collection. These newer findings provided even more detailed guidance on how the collaborative protocols were intended to function. The papers included specific procedures for coordination, communication, and decision-making that would ensure smooth operation while maintaining the dignity and effectiveness of royal service. Eugenie's legal research had reached a critical milestone with confirmation from constitutional scholars that the historical protocols were not only valid, but could be implemented without requiring parliamentary approval or constitutional amendments. This discovery had removed one of the major obstacles they had worried about and cleared the path for more rapid implementation of their plans. William had been working behind the scenes to build support among other family members, carefully introducing concepts and testing reactions without revealing the full scope of their discovery. His diplomatic approach had yielded encouraging results, with several relatives expressing enthusiasm for more collaborative approaches to royal duties. The groundwork was being laid for broader acceptance and participation in their initiative. As they settled into their familiar positions around the massive oak table, the atmosphere was charged with anticipation and determination. Today's meeting would mark a transition from planning to action, as they finalized the detailed implementation strategy they had been developing for weeks. Each element of their proposal had been thoroughly researched and carefully considered, creating a comprehensive plan that honored tradition while embracing innovation. Catherine presented the communication strategy they would use to introduce their collaborative approach to the public and media. Rather than making dramatic announcements or creating unnecessary controversy, they planned to demonstrate the effectiveness of their new methods through gradual implementation and successful outcomes. The public would come to understand and appreciate the changes through observing their positive effects rather than through formal explanations or justifications. The first phase of implementation would focus on coordinating their charitable activities and public engagements more effectively. By working together to address overlapping interests and complementary skills, they could maximize their impact while reducing duplication of effort. This approach would be immediately visible to the public and media, while remaining well within established royal protocols and expectations. Beatrice outlined the second phase, which would involve more extensive coordination of their ceremonial and official duties. The historical documents provided clear guidance on how multiple family members could share responsibilities for major events and state functions while maintaining proper protocol and dignity. This collaboration would allow each person to contribute their unique strengths while ensuring that no single individual was overwhelmed by excessive responsibilities. The most ambitious phase of their plan involved establishing new traditions of family consultation and collective decision-making that would influence the long-term direction of royal service. This approach would create a more democratic and inclusive atmosphere within the family, while maintaining appropriate respect for hierarchy and protocol. The ancient documents had anticipated this very situation and provided detailed procedures for ensuring effective communication and consensus building. Eugenie had prepared contingency plans for various scenarios and potential challenges they might encounter during implementation. These preparations included responses to media speculation, government inquiries, and family concerns about the changes they were implementing. Each potential complication had been analyzed and addressed, creating a comprehensive risk management strategy that would help ensure smooth execution of their plans. William raised important questions about the timing of their announcement and the coordination required with other family members who were not yet fully informed about their discovery. They needed to balance the desire for transparency and inclusion with the practical requirements of maintaining confidentiality during the sensitive implementation period. The solution involved a gradual process of education and involvement that would bring other family members into their circle of collaboration without creating confusion or resistance. The afternoon session focused on establishing clear roles and responsibilities for each participant in their collaborative venture. Rather than replacing existing structures, they were creating supplementary systems that would enhance effectiveness and satisfaction while maintaining all necessary traditions and protocols. Each person would retain their individual identity and responsibilities while gaining new opportunities for meaningful collaboration and mutual support. Catherine found herself reflecting on how much their understanding had evolved since that first morning when Beatrice's phone call had changed everything. What had begun as a historical curiosity had become a comprehensive vision for the future of royal service. The documents had provided the foundation, but their shared commitment and creativity had transformed ancient protocols into a modern framework for collaborative excellence. As the meeting concluded, they established final timelines and coordination procedures for the implementation phase. The next few weeks would test everything they had learned and planned over the past months. Success would require not only careful execution, but also the courage to persevere through inevitable challenges and adjustments that would arise as their vision became reality. The library that had served as their planning sanctuary would soon return to its traditional role as a place of quiet study and reflection. However, the work accomplished within its walls would continue to influence royal service for generations to come. The four collaborators had discovered that innovation and tradition could coexist beautifully when guided by wisdom, respect, and genuine commitment to service. Their secret meetings were about to transform into public demonstrations of how ancient wisdom could address modern challenges while strengthening rather than weakening the institutions they had sworn to serve. The morning of the first coordinated public appearance dawned crisp and clear, with autumn sunlight streaming through the tall windows of Kensington Palace. Catherine stood before her mirror, adjusting the sapphire brooch that had belonged to her grandmother-in-law, finding comfort in the weight of tradition, even as she prepared to participate in something entirely new. Today would mark the beginning of their quiet revolution, the first public demonstration of the collaborative approach they had spent months planning. The charity event they had chosen for this inaugural collaboration was perfect for their purposes. The Children's Literacy Foundation had been close to all their hearts for years, and their combined appearance would seem natural and unforced to both media and public observers. What would not be immediately apparent was the unprecedented level of coordination and shared responsibility that had gone into planning every aspect of the day's activities. Beatrice had arrived at the palace an hour earlier, carrying the final briefing materials they would need for seamless coordination throughout the event. Her organizational skills had proved invaluable during the planning process, and today she would serve as the unofficial coordinator, ensuring that their collaborative approach enhanced rather than complicated the day's proceedings. Her calm confidence helped settle the nervous energy that all of them felt as they prepared to test their theories in the real world. William emerged from his study carrying a folder containing the updated schedules and contingency plans they had developed over the past weeks. Every possible scenario had been considered and addressed, from media questions about their unusual level of coordination to potential conflicts in timing or protocol. Their preparation had been thorough, but they all understood that real-world implementation would inevitably present challenges they had not anticipated. Eugenie joined them in the main sitting room, her legal training evident in the precise way she reviewed the final details of their arrangement. She had spent the previous evening confirming that every aspect of their collaborative approach remained within established protocols and constitutional boundaries. Her careful analysis had given them confidence that they were innovating responsibly while maintaining all necessary traditions and expectations. The drive to the venue provided their last opportunity for private coordination. Before stepping into the public eye as a unified team, Catherine found herself thinking about the historical precedents that had made this moment possible, marveling at how ancient wisdom could provide such relevant guidance for contemporary challenges. The documents they had discovered had given them permission to think beyond conventional boundaries while maintaining deep respect for tradition and protocol. Their arrival at the Children's Center was carefully choreographed to demonstrate their collaborative approach without appearing rehearsed or artificial. Rather than following traditional hierarchical arrangements, they moved as a coordinated team, each person taking responsibility for different aspects of the visit while maintaining constant communication and mutual support. The effect was immediately noticeable to observers, who commented on the natural ease and effectiveness of their interactions. The first hour of the visit exceeded their highest expectations. Working together, they were able to engage with more children, participate in more activities, and create more meaningful connections than any of them could have achieved individually. Their different strengths and interests complemented each other perfectly, creating a synergy that enhanced the experience for everyone involved. The children responded enthusiastically to their collaborative energy, and the staff remarked on how refreshing it was to see such genuine teamwork. Media representatives who had expected a routine royal visit found themselves documenting something entirely different. The seamless coordination and obvious mutual support among the four royals created compelling stories and images that captured public attention in ways that individual appearances rarely achieved. Social media responses were overwhelmingly positive, with many commenting on how natural and effective their collaboration appeared. During the lunch break, they gathered in a private room to assess their progress and make any necessary adjustments for the afternoon activities. The morning had validated their planning and preparation, while revealing additional opportunities for collaboration that they had not previously considered. Each of them reported positive interactions and successful execution of their assigned responsibilities, building confidence for the challenges that lay ahead. Catherine had been particularly impressed by how naturally their collaborative approach had enhanced her ability to connect with the children and their families. Rather than feeling constrained by protocol or limited by individual responsibilities, she had found new freedom to engage authentically while maintaining appropriate dignity and professionalism. The support of her colleagues had created a safety net that allowed for more spontaneous and meaningful interactions. Beatrice shared similar observations about how their coordinated approach had improved her own effectiveness and enjoyment of the visit. Working as part of a team had eliminated much of the pressure and uncertainty that often accompanied solo royal engagements, while providing opportunities to learn from and support her colleagues. The collaborative environment had brought out strengths she had not known she possessed, while allowing her to contribute in ways that felt natural and authentic. The afternoon session built on the morning's successes while introducing additional elements of coordination and mutual support. They seamlessly transitioned between different activities and groups, each taking the lead when appropriate, while providing backup and assistance to their colleagues. Their shared commitment to the children's welfare created a unified focus that enhanced every interaction and activity throughout the remainder of the visit. William found himself reflecting on how the collaborative approach had transformed his own experience of royal duty. Rather than carrying the full weight of representation and leadership alone, he was able to share responsibilities while maintaining his essential role and authority. The support of his colleagues had created new possibilities for engagement and impact that individual efforts could never have achieved. As the visit concluded, they gathered for a group photograph with the children and staff, their genuine smiles reflecting the satisfaction and success of their collaborative experiment. The image would become iconic, representing not just a successful charity visit but a new approach to royal service that honored tradition while embracing innovation and teamwork. The drive back to London was filled with animated discussion and analysis of their experience. Each of them had observations and insights that would help refine their approach for future collaborations. The day had proven that their months of planning and preparation had been worthwhile, creating a foundation for continued success and expansion of their collaborative model. That evening, as Catherine reviewed the media coverage and public response to their visit, she felt a profound sense of satisfaction and anticipation. They had successfully demonstrated that innovation and tradition could coexist beautifully when guided by wisdom, respect, and genuine commitment to service. The positive response from children, families, staff, media, and public observers validated their belief that collaborative approaches could enhance rather than diminish the effectiveness of royal service. The documents that had started their journey had indeed provided the key to transforming their approach to royal duty. However, the real success lay in their own courage to embrace change while maintaining their essential commitment to service and tradition. They had proven that ancient wisdom could address modern challenges while strengthening the institutions they served and the relationships that sustained them. 3 months had passed since their first collaborative public appearance, and the transformation in both their effectiveness and public perception had exceeded even their most optimistic projections. The private dining room at St. James's Palace had become their regular meeting place for reviewing progress and planning future initiatives. Tonight's gathering carried special significance as they prepared to expand their collaborative approach to include additional family members who had expressed interest in joining their innovative framework. Catherine reviewed the comprehensive analysis that Eugenie had prepared, documenting the measurable improvements in their charitable work, public engagement, and media coverage. The statistics were impressive, but more important were the qualitative changes they had observed in their own satisfaction and effectiveness. Working together had not only enhanced their individual capabilities but had created new possibilities for service that none of them could have achieved alone. The media response to their collaborative approach had evolved from initial curiosity to genuine admiration and support. Royal correspondents who had initially speculated about the reasons for their unusual coordination now wrote enthusiastically about the effectiveness and innovation of their teamwork. Several prominent commentators had suggested that their approach could serve as a model for other royal families and even for leadership in other fields. Beatrice had been monitoring public opinion through various channels and had discovered overwhelmingly positive responses to their collaborative methods. Social media engagement had increased dramatically, with many people expressing appreciation for the genuine teamwork and mutual support they demonstrated. The public seemed to connect with their authentic relationships and shared commitment to service, creating stronger emotional bonds between the royals and the people they served. William had received numerous requests from other family members who wanted to understand and potentially participate in their collaborative framework. The initial skepticism that some relatives had expressed had been replaced by curiosity and enthusiasm as they observed the positive results and enhanced satisfaction that the 4 pioneers had achieved. This growing interest presented both opportunities and challenges as they considered how to expand their approach while maintaining its effectiveness and integrity. The evening's discussion began with a review of the specific protocols they had developed for coordinating their activities while respecting individual responsibilities and preferences. Over the months, they had refined their communication methods, scheduling procedures, and decision-making processes to create a remarkably efficient and harmonious system. Each person retained their unique identity and areas of focus while contributing to shared objectives and mutual support. Eugenie presented the legal framework they had developed for incorporating additional family members into their collaborative structure. The historical documents continued to provide valuable guidance, but contemporary circumstances required adaptations and innovations that honored tradition while addressing modern realities. Her research had identified several precedents for flexible royal structures that could accommodate varying levels of participation and commitment. Catherine shared her observations about how their collaborative approach had influenced their relationships with each other and with their broader family circle. The trust and communication skills they had developed through working together had strengthened their personal bonds while creating a model for healthy collaboration that others found attractive and inspiring. Their success had demonstrated that innovation could enhance rather than threaten family harmony and institutional stability. The conversation turned to specific plans for gradually incorporating interested family members into their collaborative framework. Rather than attempting to expand too quickly, they had decided to invite participation on a project-by-project basis, allowing newcomers to experience the benefits of collaboration while maintaining the flexibility to determine their own level of involvement. This approach would protect the integrity of their established methods while creating opportunities for growth and development. Beatrice had identified several upcoming events and initiatives that would provide ideal opportunities for expanded collaboration. These projects had natural connections to the interests and expertise of other family members, creating organic opportunities for participation without forcing artificial arrangements. The key would be maintaining the authentic relationships and genuine commitment to service that had made their initial collaboration so successful. William discussed the importance of maintaining the discretion and careful planning that had characterized their approach from the beginning. While their collaborative methods were now public knowledge, the strategic thinking and historical research that had made their success possible remained confidential. This careful balance between transparency and privacy had allowed them to innovate effectively while maintaining appropriate boundaries and expectations. The group spent considerable time discussing how to preserve the essential elements of their collaboration while adapting to include different personalities, interests, and working styles. Each family member brought unique strengths and perspectives that could enhance their collective effectiveness, but integration would require careful attention to group dynamics and communication patterns. They had learned that successful collaboration required both individual authenticity and shared commitment to common goals. Catherine raised important questions about the long-term sustainability of their expanded collaborative approach. As their methods became more widely adopted and institutionalized, they would need to maintain the innovation and flexibility that had made their initial success possible. The challenge would be creating structures that supported collaboration while avoiding bureaucracy or rigidity that could stifle creativity and responsiveness. The discussion revealed how much their own perspectives and capabilities had evolved through their collaborative experience. Each of them had developed new skills, discovered hidden strengths, and found renewed enthusiasm for royal service through working together. Their personal growth had been as significant as their professional achievements, creating a foundation for continued innovation and excellence in their shared mission. As the evening progressed, they finalized plans for the next phase of their collaborative evolution. The upcoming months would test their ability to maintain their successful partnership while incorporating new participants and addressing more complex challenges. Their confidence was based not only on their past successes, but on the solid foundation of trust, communication, and shared values they had built together. Eugenie summarized the legal and practical arrangements that would govern their expanded collaboration, ensuring that all participants understood their rights and responsibilities while maintaining the flexibility that had made their approach so effective. The framework they had developed provided structure without constraining creativity, creating a model that could adapt to changing circumstances while maintaining its essential characteristics. The meeting concluded with expressions of gratitude and determination that reflected how much their shared journey had meant to each of them personally and professionally. They had discovered that innovation and tradition could coexist beautifully when guided by wisdom, respect, and genuine commitment to service. Their collaboration had become more than a working arrangement. It had become a new model for royal service that honored the past while embracing the future. As they prepared to leave St. James's Palace, Catherine reflected on how far they had traveled since that first phone call from Beatrice months earlier. The documents that had started their journey had provided the historical foundation, but their own courage, creativity, and commitment had transformed ancient protocols into a living example of how collaboration could enhance rather than diminish individual excellence and institutional effectiveness. The next phase of their journey would build on these strong foundations, while creating new possibilities for service and satisfaction that would benefit not only their own family, but the nation they served. The grand ballroom of Buckingham Palace had witnessed countless historic moments over the centuries, but tonight it would host an event that represented a quiet revolution in royal service. 6 months after their first tentative collaboration, the expanded group of family members had organized a comprehensive charity gala that showcased the full potential of their innovative approach. The evening would demonstrate how ancient protocols could be transformed into modern excellence while maintaining every tradition that truly mattered. Catherine stood at the entrance to the ballroom, greeting guests with a confidence and ease that reflected the profound changes she had experienced through collaborative royal service. The past months had been filled with challenges and triumphs that had strengthened not only her individual capabilities, but her relationships with family members and her connection to the people they served. Tonight's event represented the culmination of everything they had learned and achieved together. The coordination required for the evening's success was invisible to guests, but represented countless hours of planning and preparation by the entire collaborative team. Each family member had taken responsibility for different aspects of the event while maintaining constant communication and mutual support. The result was a seamless integration of individual strengths that created an experience far exceeding what any single person could have achieved. Beatrice moved through the crowd with characteristic grace and warmth, her organizational skills evident in every perfectly timed introduction and smoothly executed transition. Her role as unofficial coordinator had evolved naturally as their collaboration matured, and tonight, she demonstrated how leadership could be shared without diminishing individual authority or effectiveness. Her calm confidence helped ensure that every guest felt welcomed and valued while every detail proceeded according to plan. William engaged with distinguished visitors and dignitaries, his conversations enhanced by the background research and strategic insights provided by his collaborative partners. Rather than carrying the full burden of representation alone, he was supported by a team that amplified his natural diplomatic skills, while ensuring that no important relationship or opportunity was overlooked. The collaborative approach had transformed what could have been an overwhelming responsibility into an enjoyable and meaningful experience. Eugenie had taken the lead on the legal and logistical aspects of the evening, her attention to detail, ensuring that every element of the event met the highest standards of protocol and effectiveness. Her work behind the scenes demonstrated how collaboration could enhance individual expertise while creating new opportunities for contribution and growth. The success of the evening reflected not only careful planning, but the trust and communication that had developed among all team members. The expansion of their collaborative circle had brought new energy and perspectives that enriched their collective capabilities. Additional family members had embraced the collaborative approach with enthusiasm, discovering that teamwork enhanced rather than diminished their individual contributions to royal service. Each new participant had brought unique strengths and interests that expanded the range of activities and audiences they could effectively serve. The charity gala itself had become a showcase for their collaborative philosophy, with proceeds supporting multiple organizations that reflected the diverse interests and commitments of all participating family members. Rather than fragmenting their efforts across competing priorities, they had found ways to create synergies that amplified the impact of every contribution. The evening demonstrated how individual passions could be woven together into a tapestry of service that was more beautiful and effective than any single thread. Catherine found herself reflecting on the journey that had brought them to this moment as she watched the seamless interaction among family members who had once operated primarily as individuals. The historical documents that had started their adventure had provided the foundation, but their own courage and creativity had transformed ancient wisdom into living innovation. They had proven that tradition and progress could coexist beautifully when guided by respect, wisdom, and genuine commitment to service. The media coverage of the evening had captured not only the success of the event, but the transformation in royal service that it represented. Royal correspondents who had followed their collaborative journey from the beginning wrote with genuine admiration about the effectiveness and authenticity of their teamwork. The public response had been overwhelmingly positive, with many people expressing appreciation for the genuine relationships and shared commitment that the royal family demonstrated. Beatrice had been monitoring the long-term impact of their collaborative approach through various metrics and feedback channels. The data showed consistent improvements in public engagement, charitable effectiveness, and media coverage that validated their decision to embrace innovation while honoring tradition. More importantly, The qualitative changes in their own satisfaction and effectiveness had created a sustainable model for continued growth and development. The evening's success had been achieved without compromising any essential traditions or protocols, demonstrating that innovation could enhance rather than threaten institutional stability and dignity. Every element of royal etiquette and procedure had been carefully maintained while creating new possibilities for collaboration and mutual support. They had proven that respect for tradition and enthusiasm for innovation were not contradictory, but complementary forces. William addressed the assembled guests near the end of the evening, his remarks reflecting the shared values and collaborative spirit that had made their approach so successful. He spoke about the importance of unity, tradition, and service while acknowledging the contributions of every family member who had participated in their innovative journey. His words captured the essence of what they had achieved together, while looking forward to continued growth and development. As the evening drew to a close, the collaborative team gathered briefly in a private reception room to celebrate their success and reflect on how far they had traveled together. Each of them had been transformed by their shared experience, discovering new capabilities and finding renewed purpose in royal service. Their individual growth had been as significant as their collective achievements, creating a foundation for continued innovation and excellence. Catherine carefully placed the original historical documents in a place of honor within the palace archives, ensuring that future generations would understand the foundation upon which their collaborative revolution had been built. The papers, that had seemed like mere curiosities months earlier, had become the catalyst for transforming royal service while maintaining its essential dignity and effectiveness. The wisdom of their ancestors had guided them toward innovations that honored the past while embracing the future. The success of their collaborative approach had begun to influence other royal families and leadership organizations around the world, demonstrating that their innovations had relevance beyond their own specific circumstances. What had started as a private discovery had become a public model for how tradition and innovation could work together to create more effective and satisfying approaches to service and leadership. As they prepared to leave the palace that night, each member of the collaborative team carried with them a profound sense of accomplishment and gratitude. They had discovered that the secret to successful innovation lay not in abandoning tradition, but in understanding it deeply enough to honor its essential spirit while adapting its expression to contemporary circumstances. Their journey had proven that ancient wisdom could provide guidance for modern challenges while strengthening rather than weakening the institutions and relationships they served. The documents that had revealed their royal secrets had become the foundation for a new tradition of collaborative excellence that would serve their family and nation for generations to come. They had transformed from guardians of ancient protocols into creators of living traditions that honored the past while embracing the future with confidence, wisdom, and unwavering commitment to service.